Okay, we're live here with Shelf Space Episode 7. And you can see we're joined again by Charles, Rising Star. Charles, how you doing this
Hey
weekend?
everybody, how's it going? Chris, Gina?
Hi,
And
Charles.
and joining us as always from the 6 is Gina. How you doing today,
I
Gina?
just call it Toronto.
You just call. Oh, you don't use the 6 nickname, the phony made up
I'm
one.
too old for that, but
Okay, so we're doing a special Friday episode because Gina is on call at work all weekend. So we're squeezing it in on a Friday instead of our usual Sunday time. So let's not waste any time here. We're gonna get into our first topic on the show, and quite frankly, this could be one of the greatest achievements in television viewing history.
Oh my!
It is.
How do you follow that?
Yeah.
someone's a bit busy. Someone's a bit biased there.
I have no bias. What are you talking about?
Somebody likes Bullseye.
That's of course Daredevil season 3, which debuted on Netflix last weekend. Charles and I think we have both watched the entire season. Gina, you're heading into the final episode.
The last episode. Yeah.
So without spoiling the final episode, Charles, give us your thoughts on season 3.
I absolutely loved season 3. I had no idea what to expect. I knew Bullseye was in it. I knew Kingpin was coming back, but I didn't expect it to be that tense. You know, do you remember season 2 of Dexter? How tense it was, how you didn't know what was going to happen next, and how you were kind of like, by the edge of your seat throughout that entire season. That's what this season felt like. And it caught me by surprise.
Yeah, I thought they really Kingpin really kind of flexed his muscles, showing how he manipulates the systems and the police force and the law systems and everything. And he's just got you wrapped around his finger, and he's always 10 steps ahead. So I thought Kingpin was excellent. Gina, what about you so far? I mean,
I liked it.
You're almost there.
I liked it a lot. So far, I've just got 45 minutes left in the last episode, but no, I mean, I like what they did. I think they gave us sort of a different storyline, a different take on Daredevil and what he has to go through in this new season, which each with all the characters have to go through in this episode or in this season. I think is really interesting and really different. So I like it, and they sort of give you the backstory of each of the characters, a little bit more history of all the characters.
Especially like Karen got her own episode, so they kind of got into her. She's not exactly a goody two shoes.
That's right.
Right, she's got a bit of a seedy past, and of course, making his debut in this series was Bullseye. Mm-hmm. Although he wasn't. I don't know if he was technically Bullseye just yet, but he, for all intents and purposes was. And I thought he really added a lot to the season. The fight scene, what episode was it? 6 in the office?
Yes.
Was it 6? I thought it was maybe a bit later. Okay.
It's funny that you mentioned that. Before you go into that, if we can ask, what was your favorite episode of the season? Because I have one. And I was wondering if you guys thought the same thing. What was your favorite episode of the season?
Oh, I don't remember them all individually, but the fight with Bullseye in the office.
That's episode 6.
Yeah, when he starts just picking up all the random office stuff, and it's all a weapon. It's all deadly. There was that. Then the one where Matt goes to the jail.
Yes, that's the one. Episode 4. Amazing. The whole thing. You're going, how is he going to get out of here?
Exactly. He gets trapped in there. Everyone's on Kingpin's books. Everyone's an enemy.
Except
I guess we should say spoiler alert for anybody watching, right?
About episode 4, when they were in the jail cell, when they were in the penitentiary, he had a cameo, kind of one of those Stan Lee cameos. It was Roy Thomas. Roy Thomas wrote like 30 issues of Daredevil in the 60s and the 70s. He was like editor-in-chief of Marvel throughout most of the 70s. He created the Vision, wrote Conan, an exceptional run with Barry Windsor Smith. He was right there. And I actually had to Google it and go like, hey, was that Roy Thomas?
No.
And I Googled it, and it said Roy Thomas was in episode 4.
Oh wow.
So it was kind of cool to see that. I think that was really one for the comic fans. But if you look it up in your Masterworks, he did issues, I think, 55 to 75 with Gene Colan, so it was cool to see him there. But other than that,
Okay.
episode 4 was amazing.
No,
Yeah.
I did not. I did not recognize Roy
That's
Thomas,
okay.
but
You have to be a
yeah,
big
episode
nerd
4
like
or
me.
episode 6 probably my two favorites from the whole seasons.
Did,
Gina, do you
did
have
you
one that
guys
stands out?
yeah did you guys find that the fighting was less choreographed and more raw in this season? I found the fighting was to be more sort of more raw, like not as a dance, but just more brutal.
Well, there was the whole bare knuckle fighting. That's what it
Yep.
all was bare knuckle fighting.
Yeah.
You started to see Daredevil's radar sense play a bigger role in the later episodes. In like the final fight with Bullseye, you started to see him use his radar sense. But up until then, it was all bare knuckle fighting. It's almost
Yeah.
unnerving a little bit,
Yeah.
It got so bloody.
It was pretty brutal, yeah. And I just loved how Bullseye, going back to that episode 6, I think where he bounces the billy club off the ground and hits somebody in the face and takes them. I don't know if that was that
Yeah.
episode or
So
not.
he doesn't just like hit people. He uses angles and he
Oh,
uses
yeah.
ricochet.
And he ricochets the
Yeah.
bullets.
That's awesome.
And
So
that-
Chris, just to answer your question, I think my two favorite episodes was when they showed the backstory of Bullseye, and or when
Okay.
like Wilson Fisk was reading
yeah,
all
the
the
files,
psychiatrist
the
files, yeah.
and the way that they did that in a very artistic way, like they had it sort of the scene playing out as Wilson's reading everything, and it's sort of like I guess black and white or something, and it's happening in the penthouse as it's all being read by Wilson.
Yeah.
So that was one of my favorite episodes, and I think also the episode with in the whole newsroom and finally Daredevil and Bullseye.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know if you guys felt this way, but I felt that when they finally met and they had that first confrontation in the show, it was such a worthy adversary for Daredevil. I thought,
Yeah.
wow, this is someone that can handle Daredevil, and vice versa. This is someone that can handle Bullseye. This is someone that can handle Daredevil. Each of them were so evenly matched.
Oh yeah, and one thing I hope if the show does continue, I hope that Daredevil starts to use his billy clubs in that way, because he does it in the comics routinely, right? He tosses them around and they bounce off 3 different walls and hit someone in the head, and that'd be cool to see. And I was so happy to see Bullseye actually do it.
It's a great villain for Daredevil.
Yeah.
Perfect. Gina, you were talking about that episode where Kingpin was reading Poindexter's file.
Yep.
When I was watching that episode, I was trying to watch it the way Kingpin was reading it. So Kingpin was reading the file, and everything he would read is, how can I manipulate this? How can I use this? How can I use this to my benefit? How can I take control of his vulnerabilities? So every type of his scene, every scene that Dex we saw when he was younger, Kingpin was looking at how I can take advantage of this for my own ends. And that's the way I was watching that episode.
Okay.
Because that scene is really about Kingpin interested in this guy, but not like a father figure. He's interested because how can I use him?
Yep. See, I saw it a bit differently. I was looking at it like how the screenwriters were trying to tell Poindexter's story, but in an interesting artistic way. They've done the whole going back in time and doing flashbacks, but this was sort of the writers' sort of artistic, unique way of giving us a flashback. That's how I saw it. I thought, oh, this is pretty unique. This is pretty different. I'm not sure if they've done it this way in Daredevil before. But I was engaged. I was like, oh, I want to learn more about Poindexter. I was like, this is really interesting. And obviously the whole genesis of his psychosis and what he did to the baseball coach and things like that. It's very, it fits in with, he's not quite there, up in
he's got a strong sense of abandonment, and he doesn't do well with that. So
yeah, one of the things with Bullseye, I think that his origin, there was a Bullseye's Greatest Hits, I think it was called, an origin story for him. And he basically ran through that whole thing. He was a baseball player and all that. But at the end of that, it was, oh, I was just making that up. Because he was in jail and he was selling his story to his interrogators. And then he breaks out and says, oh, that was all fake. And so in the comics, you don't really know who Bullseye is. Still,
Oh,
I don't think.
I see. I see.
I wonder if if they would do that later on and kind of say, oh,
I see.
well, who's Ben Poindexter?
That's almost like a nod of how Joker pretends to tell his story, but it's not really his story, and no one really knows where he's from.
Very similar, yeah.
Like that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to give anything away, but the hope is that everybody comes back for more, right? So,
I hope so.
You know,
I left it like there's definitely open for more, right? But I wonder where they're gonna go because they've done Kingpin twice, they've done Elektra 2 or 3 times. If you're including Defender, she's been in it twice, right? Or 3 times? No, 2.
Twice.
Yeah, and then the Hand has been in it 3 times. They've done Punisher.
Is Punisher gonna, has that been sort of confirmed, season 2?
Yeah, I think they're filming it right now. I think.
Oh, okay.
But I wonder where they're gonna go. Like, because Bullseye will be back, I'm sure.
I have a pretty good idea. I think I know where they're gonna go. I mean,
what's your prediction?
The entire underworld is in disarray. It's up for grabs for everyone with a pipe dream of being a crime boss. It's going to be a mess. There's no kingpin to control everything. Who's controlling the judges?
Don't tell me anything. I haven't finished. Don't tell me anything.
No, that's a.
That's not giving it away. That's not giving it away.
That's not giving it away. But that's what I see is going to happen. Is his life is going to be tougher because now it was one bad guy. Now it'll be like 20 smaller ones, and and that's assuming. Okay. I'm not going to say anymore.
See, I wonder now that Kingpin officially knows who Matt Murdock and Daredevil are the same person. I wonder if he'll sort of leak that out, because that's a big storyline in the comics too, is when his identity is revealed to the general public,
right,
and becomes a huge problem for him. So I wonder if they'll go that direction. But
it would be very interesting. You're talking about the Bendis issues, right?
Yes.
Where people are, even though it's out there, they're still wondering, is it really him? Is it not really him?
Can't be him because he's blind, right? Like so we'll go from.
Hey, wait one second. You know what my favorite line from season 3 is?
What's that?
Give me your coat. Give me your coat.
Oh yeah. In the limo. That was
we
good.
know where that. Yeah, we know where that.
I was like, okay, what's he gonna do with this?
I know something was gonna happen, but the way that actor is just amazing. The way just the calm way he just said it. Give me your coat.
Yeah, Kingpin.
Just give me your coat.
So I think probably I would say it's the best season so far of all the Netflix shows. So if we go from the high, let's talk about some of the lows here. We got Luke Cage and Iron Fist both canceled. We talked about Iron Fist last episode. It had just been canceled, and then about a week later, Luke Cage also canceled. What do you guys? Where do you see these characters going from here? Do you see any future for them in the Netflix universe?
If they decide to do Heroes for Hire, but I don't know. It looks like Disney's trying to get everything back. That's what the scuttlebutt seems to be. Like Disney's trying to get everything back one by one, put it under all one big umbrella. There's even talk about maybe Daredevil being canceled. So who knows? And if Disney gets their hand on these properties, what they're going to do with it. They're going to do. Disney's concept is always about mass market. What can we do to reach the greatest and the largest number of people? And
it could be that. It could be that we're all reading a little bit too much into this. That Netflix canceled it. Doesn't have anything to do with Disney. Just Netflix canceled it because the shows just were not doing well, and Netflix has a history. They're known for after 1 season, 2 seasons of a show, it doesn't do well, it's gone, because Netflix has all the stats, so they know who's watching, they know how often people are watching. So they have a history of just canceling shows, starting shows up, if it doesn't do well, canceling it. So this could just be purely a Netflix decision that they still own the rights to do these shows, but Cage and Iron Fist just weren't doing well. and maybe they might do Heroes for Hire. They think Netflix also has a history of sort of going towards fan favorites. They kind of know what people are wanting, and like, hey, people are looking for this, people are looking for this vintage show, let's just do this. So it could have just, but one thing I found interesting was that Luke Cage was already in development for the third season. So the writers table had already been formed. They were already writing the scripts for season 3. They had just begun, I believe. So they'd already begun the process of season 3. So it's really interesting that they pulled the plug. But
Luke Cage, I'm not totally surprised. I mean, after they canceled Iron Fist, I figured Luke Cage would be next. I was kind of bored by both seasons of Luke Cage, to be honest. There were good parts, but overall, both of those seasons, I had struggled to get through.
Did you have a favorite of season 2 of Iron Fist or season 2 of Luke Cage? Which one?
Iron Fist season 2 is better, for sure.
Okay.
Out of the 4, 1 and 2 for both of those characters, Iron Fist season 2 was my favorite.
Okay.
Did you find that Luke Cage resembled his comic character?
I'm not a Luke Cage expert in any way. So
I think that might have played a role in why the fans didn't like much Luke Cage and Iron Fist. Luke Cage was like an ex-con, a thug, very street, very, very street. And on this show, he's likable and civil. And something was lost. It didn't have the same charm. A guy who came from nothing and got all these powers, and his first inkling of what to do with these powers is to make money with it. Because that's what he was in the beginning, right? Luke Cage, hero for hire.
Yeah.
And they didn't really explore that part of his character, and that's what people liked about him in the comic books. And Iron Fist, this guy's supposed to be like this super martial artist, and he's being beaten up left and right. So, he didn't feel like this phenomenal force that the Iron Fist was supposed to.
Not in season 1, that's for sure. Season 2 is better. If you haven't watched it, check out season 2. It is better. It's not. It's not completely fixed, but it is better.
Yeah, I think the majority of viewers who are watching Luke Cage and Iron Fist are not readers of the comics, anyways.
No, they're not.
So
Probably not.
I just don't think it connected because the story didn't hold up for 12 episodes.
No, and it's way too long. But sorry, Iron Fist season 2 was only 10, and it was a little bit. The pacing was a little bit better. Okay. I think they could do a Heroes for Hire. And I think if they brought in Luke and Danny, and then we got Misty here, who I think is an interesting character, and Colleen, I think between the 4 of them, you could do a 10-episode series and make it interesting.
But it sounds like from both you guys that you guys both agree that just going by our question, that the cancellation was justified for Cage and Iron Fist. Do you guys agree that it was?
It wasn't must-see TV. I mean, what more can you say? Daredevil felt like must-see TV. How many hours a day do we have to watch TV? How many hours a week? So if we're going to devote time, it's got to be good. And Daredevil did it. We went through 13 hours in a few days, just because we loved it. Yeah. Right? Whereas something like Luke Cage or Iron Fist, it'll sit on a disc, or you'll get around to it when there's nothing left, or you're already done watching your other TV shows. That's not how you want to watch a TV show. You can't wait,
Yeah. Charles, I felt the exact same way. Is that you can't wait till season 3 to be really good. You can't. It's just too late. I mean, in this day and age, in this digital age, where we have streaming and we've got cable and we've got HBO, and I mean, we've got everything. Game of Thrones is starting next year. I mean, you just can't wait till season 3 for your show to really pep up. 5 years ago, yes. 5 years ago. I mean, look at Star Trek The Next Generation. It was not good for the first 2 seasons. And it wasn't until the 3rd season, 4th season that it really picked up. They had a different showrunner. and it just became this really quality episodes. You can't do
One
that
thing
anymore. You
about
can't.
Luke Cage that was good was the soundtrack. They had, you know, the club, Mariah's club, where she'd bring in musical guests playing on stage, and they'd have these little 5 minute clips where they'd just be the musician playing their song, and some of them were really good. And that was the highlight of the whole season for me. And that, I guess that's not really saying much for
Oh
for the
God.
series, right? When
I
you're
hope the producers aren't hearing that. The highlight was the music in the club.
well,
I
it was
think
good.
I
It was
just
good.
got to episode. I think I'm only on episode 4 of Luke Cage. I like episode 4 or maybe 5. I like the main villain. I think that guy really stands out.
Oh,
What's
what's
his
his
name?
name?
I can't remember.
It's a snake.
Um,
Bushmaster. Bushmaster.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
He's
he
good.
really stands out.
Yeah. But anyways, we're in the fall TV season, right? We're talking about Daredevil season 3, and all the new shows now on the CW are starting their new seasons, and that is of course the Flash. Um, is started. Has it started already? Season
Yes, it has.
what season are they on?
5.
Season 5. Okay.
Uh,
And
yeah.
sorry, I don't know if it's any good, but there's also plans, I guess, for like an Arrowverse crossover. Is that right? With
It's a 4-episode crossover. It's Flash, Arrow, Supergirl, and Legends of Tomorrow. And this year, they're going to introduce Batwoman in
That's
that
right.
4-episode crossover, which should be maybe early next year, which should be
Right. So that's
very interesting.
Ruby Rose, right? As
Right.
Batwoman.
That's right. Yep.
And she was she in John Wick too?
She
She was
was
in Dawn. Yeah, she was.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
So she was
and then
the female
Orange
sort of
is the New
villain.
Black.
assassin. Yeah, she was in Orange is the New. Yeah, Orange is the New Black, and yeah.
So these shows are on. I don't know if it's basic cable, but they're on regular cable channels. Can the
Actually, Flash isn't that easy to find anymore. You have
Oh,
to
really?
get it on CW now. So
Okay.
it's not easy to find.
So is it? Do you think it's on its way out then? Because the question we're asking here is, can these sort of basic shows compete with the ones that are streaming on Netflix? And we'll talk about the other ones.
I think it's a
later.
different audience.
Yeah.
The Flash, like for me, I watched The Flash. I've watched all the seasons, but it has not been one of my favorite shows. But my kids like it, right? You've got Flash, you've got Kid Flash, and their girlfriends are Flash, and the daughter comes from the future, and she's a speedster, and they have alternate universes, and everyone's dating everybody, and it's a cute show. There's no blood, there's no profanity, there's no nudity, there's no suggested sexuality. It's Disney-esque, very.
Yeah.
Um,
See, yeah,
my
I can-
kids like
That's
it.
always been the reason why I never got into those shows, because they seem to be very family oriented, which
Very.
I thought was great. But to me, comic book characters have never been that type of fireplace. Let's watch this with mom and dad kind of thing. These characters have never been that for me.
Well, that
So
you haven't grown up in my household. My kids, I've made it a family. Let's sit around
You made
and
it.
watch Daredevil season 3 and whatever Deadpool or whatever, right?
but no, for me, I mean, just to answer, like, for my answer to the question, I don't know if these CW shows can survive sort of
Yeah,
the
they do.
onslaught. Well,
I mean,
hold on,
five seasons is survival.
no, I don't think so, because in the next 5 years, we're going to get an onslaught of these new shows coming out, these new comic book shows coming out on different streaming services. And not just comic book, but also Star Wars streaming shows. So I think the CW benefited 5 years ago and whatever from the fact that we had, there was a absence of these comic book characters on basic cable TV. So they benefit from that, and meaning that no matter what format they gave us, people were going to watch it because it was just an open book, and you couldn't find that on TV. But now in 2018, and from moving on now, starting in next year and whatever, there's going to be this onslaught of all these new shows coming out on these streaming services. And this is just very, very, very subjective, but these new shows on these streaming services may have better scripts, better stories because they're not stretching it over 26 episodes like basic cable is. They're stretching it over 10 episodes, 12 episodes, 13 episodes, so they can form a very more solid structured story arc, and they don't have to draw things out. So the stories may be more solid on these new streaming services, may also be a bit more adult oriented that people may enjoy. So I'm not sure if the CW shows can survive the next 5 years. They benefited from the fact that they had almost a monopoly on comic book characters on TV, but I don't know. Like, how do you feel, Chris? Like,
I'm not saying that just a sec. I'm not saying that they would last another 5 years. I'm just saying any TV show that has 5 years under its belt, that's a successful TV show in this day and age.
I would agree. I would not say that they're a failure. Absolutely, I would agree. I think that they did better than expected, and I think that I would agree. I would never call them a failure. I would never. Absolutely, I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, I watched the first couple seasons of The Flash and was fairly entertained. I got a little bit bored with everyone being a speedster, as you said, and the villains again were always a speedster. I don't know what it's like now, but I do remember my favorite part of The Flash was Patty Spivot. Was she? I think that was season 2. So I'm just using an excuse to throw her up on screen because I thought she was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Does that answer that? I don't
why
know
not?
That
Right.
The question.
The question. No, I don't think they can survive. Well, the DC ones, because DC is going to have their own streaming service. That's going to be tough for those series to keep going, because I think maybe their stories are a little played out, and they might start them over again on the
I think
DC
most
service.
shows kind of peter out after a while. They don't really say anything new, and it becomes about the relationships between the people on the show.
Yeah.
Once people
start getting married and having kids, that's usually the end of the show, right? So I don't know if that's happened on The Flash yet. Has he got with his half sister or stepsister or whatever yet?
Yeah.
Is that a storyline for the kids?
Well, what's her name? I can't remember Iris. Iris, they grew up in the same household, right? They're not related, but.
Well, after his parents were, his mother was murdered and his dad went to jail, he was kind of like, where am I going to go now? And his neighbor took him in, kind of adopted him.
Yeah, his dad's partner, whatever, or was it his dad's partner, whatever. They were friends, and so they grew up in the same household. I find it kind of creepy, but. Anyways, we touched on the new DC streaming service, which debuted its first show, I believe, recently in the Titans. And one thing you'll notice is they dropped the word teen from the title, and we're not seeing these Teen Titans. We're seeing this version of the Titans, which is, as Gina likes, or as I include myself there, the more adult-oriented version of the characters. Now, Charles, you've watched a bit of the show already?
I really like it. Can I talk about it a bit, or does someone else want to start?
You go ahead, because I haven't watched it. I haven't watched it. Yeah.
All right, so let me set the stage. Right, we're looking at Dick Grayson, who's in his early 20s. Robin hasn't been seen for at least a year. So as far as everybody knows, he's died. They don't know where he is. So where does this show start? It starts in Detroit, Michigan. And Dick Grayson is a detective for the Detroit Police Department, and he's kind of a loner, right? And there's a scene where he's fighting crime in an alleyway where you see these bad guys, these neighborhood thugs, and they see Robin, and then they start looking up in the air. Where's Batman?
Right.
Hey, Birdie, where's Batman? And they're kind of like egging him on, and then you just see him completely clean house. And after he pretty much takes everybody out, you know what he says?
I know it. Yeah, I've seen that clip.
I saw the trailer.
Yeah.
So this is going to be our one moment in the show where we'll go there.
Yeah.
He basically says, "Fuck Batman," right?
Yeah.
And that right then and there, it tells you that this show is not going to be like any other show that you've seen with Robin before. He looked cool. He was interesting. And in the second episode, he meets up with Hawk and Dove, right? Okay. And you just see Dove, he had a relationship with her in the past. And it goes to a place that we haven't seen Dick Grayson before. And I like Dick Grayson as an early 20s guy or a mid 20s guy. He's going to be, I see him becoming Nightwing on this show. That they're going to, get the slate clean and get him to introduce Nightwing to the world. It was a really good show. I really recommend it. We didn't get to see much of Starfire. Starfire, just in the first episode, she wakes up in a car. She doesn't know who she is. We don't know who she is. And it's a journey to find out who she is. And it's the same thing with Raven, right? Raven has nightmares and she dreams of Dick Grayson and, the whole origin with the Flying Graysons getting killed in the circus. And in one scene, we see Changeling, morphing into a tiger to rip off video games.
Beast Boy.
Beast Boy.
Yeah.
So I really think that this is going to be Robin's show, and we're just going to kind of get to know everybody else. Of course, there's no Cyborg because I think he's leased out to the Justice League right now. But it's a show that I recommend. It's second to Daredevil in terms of what I've been watching this year in terms of superhero shows so far.
Cool. I might check it out. I be honest, I'm not a big fan of Robin, so maybe I'm hoping this will change my mind on.
But the Robin that is not the Robin in this show.
Exactly right. The Robin I know and can't get out of my head is the 1960s Robin,
it's not him.
Running around in the yellow Speedo, and I hated that show. I hated that show. Even as a kid, I hated that show, and I've never been able to get that image of Robin out of my head. So I might check out Titans just to see if I can finally rid myself of that. What's the actor's name? I can't remember.
I don't know, but he's a British guy. Another British guy.
No, the original Robin.
Burt Ward.
Burt Ward.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't get the image of him in yellow Speedos out of my head. It's scarring. But
well, this guy, what's interesting is the question in the show is asked to Dick Grayson, why did he come over to Detroit? And he says that, he felt he was becoming too much like him and that he was becoming dark and morose and gritty. And he didn't like being that dark and alone and negative and pessimistic. That wasn't the Robin that we ever knew. So he's coming over here to start a new chapter in his career of crime fighting. And I really like the idea that he's a detective, because one of the things that we don't see Robin do enough is being a detective, right? Because he is a detective too. What we see in the comic books is that he's a computer geek. He's a computer genius. I mean, that's so cliche for teenagers today in comic books or TV. But to see Robin use his detective smarts that I'm sure he learned from the greatest detective, right? Yeah. So I think we're going to see something very interesting with this character, and I hope the show lasts because it's been this character Robin's been around since 1940, and he still doesn't quite have the entire respect. Like, look at the way you spoke about him. So it's I think this character is ready to become, at the very least, a B+ character.
So it's a weekly series. It's not released all at one time. It's not a Netflix style.
No, it's weekly. Okay,
yeah, I think I prefer having all the episodes there. I like to just get it out of the way.
Yeah, but then there's a race. Like when I was watching it, right? Yeah. And I'm telling you, I'm on episode 6, and what are you telling me? Don't tease. Don't tell me anything. So when we're watching it week by week, at least kind of everybody can catch up, and
So, do you plan to watch Titans, Gina?
Yeah, I think just going with what the question says there, I think I'm going to watch it just because it has a dark theme, or a darker theme than what we've seen before from some of these DC shows. So it's definitely got my attention because of that. So I will check it out. I think it's going to appear on Netflix and up here in Canada. They haven't announced when, but when it does,
when it comes out on Netflix, I'll check it out for sure. So speaking of dark themes, Halloween's coming up soon. It's next week, and I'm getting ready to take the kids out. I'm hoping we've had some nice weather out here. I'm hoping it sticks around because wearing a costume over your snowsuit sucks.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's one of the more popular horror characters the last year or so has been Pennywise from It, of course. And we're getting that flood of it-related collectibles right now. So let's just run through some of the items that have been shown the last few months, just since I think San Diego was when most of these were shown first. So here we got a couple from Elite Creature Collectibles. This is a bust. It looks like a life-size bust on the left there, and we got, I don't know if it's 1/3 or 1/2 scale. It's a larger piece there on the right, and you can see the clown in the sewer as well, and the little paper boat just about to go down into the sewer. So that's option number one, and I don't know who took these photos. I'll say that off the top. So I'm just grabbing them off of Twitter and stuff. So that's one high-end piece, and then we got kind of sticking with that same price range. We got the one from Prime One Studio. So
I like this one a lot.
This one, it's very similar to ECC's. Very similar pose, standing over top of the sewer grate with the hand and the boat and everything. Both look very nice. So those are both going to be probably a couple $1,000, I'm thinking.
Jeez.
Oh yeah.
So let's drop down in price range a little bit and look at the offering from Tweeterhead, which is I believe this one's a 1/5 scale. The Prime One was a 1/2 scale, so this one's a little bit smaller. It stands out.
You got to give it. Sorry, just one quickly. You got to give it to the art direction team of Tweeterhead. It seems like no matter everything they do, looks good. It just looks cool.
Yeah.
Even if you're not going to buy it, it looks cool.
Yeah, this one really stands out to me as being different than the other two. The other two were so similar.
Almost a Venom pose.
Yeah, so this one's really cool. It's got the two options, holding the balloon. There's some exclusive items you can put on the top of the coffin there. I think you can even open up the coffin, and it's got the little doll, the Richie doll.
That's right.
Inside, which is pretty cool. And then dropping down a little bit further on the price scale, we got from Iron Studios. This is their 1/10 scale, so comes with a couple different options there. Again, very similar to Prime One and ECC, right? Kind of standing there. There's no sewer scene here, but it's still very close.
Congratulations to the copyright holders of Pennywise. They got everybody to, pony up for a license.
Yeah, so I find it a little curious that there's 3 out of the 4 are so similar to each other, but it's kind of a iconic pose, I guess, from the movie. But there's kind of something for everybody there. You got the 1/10 scale will be around, I think it's around $150, somewhere in that range. The Tweeterhead's around $350 for 1/5 scale, but then you take a big jump up to the other ones that are going to be in the thousands of dollars. But did any of those statues kind of pique your interest? Were you guys a fan of the movie?
I'll let you go, Gina.
No, I loved the movie. I thought it was one of those sort of sleeper hits that, even judging from the trailer, I don't think anyone, well, maybe I'll just speak for myself. I didn't think it was going to be as good as what it was, and it was really good. I like, out of those ones we've seen, I like the Prime One, that expression on his face, and I like the Tweeterhead one a lot as well.
Yeah, Prime One is also, I think, releasing 2 or 3 half-scale busts that kind of, you can take the head off and put them on this statue, but you have to buy them all separate. So that's the Prime One model, to milk things as much as they can, it seems like.
I mean,
but if it works for them, go for it. But
these are nice statues, but they starting to go into the $600, $700, $800 range, and fans are selective. I mean, if people are happy, if the people are looking for Pennywise collectibles, they're being spoiled here. They're going to get some great choices out there. But as a general rule, not a huge fan of movie character statues.
So let's get to our kind of topic question for this topic. Is 4 too many for that? It's like all kind of at one time. We got three out of the four looking almost identical to each other. Is that too much, too soon, or should they have spread these ones out a little bit, or just not made as many?
Well, what I'm thinking is that someone's trying to make money while they still can. That's how it presents to me. Um, Generally, it would have been better if they spread it out, but maybe the companies are saying, is anyone going to care in 2 years to want a Pennywise? What's going to be the boogeyman of choice in 2 years? Is he going to seem silly then? I don't know.
There's the sequel to the movie, so if these are up for pre-order now, they might be released just in time for the movie next year, right?
I think that's the plan. Yeah.
Yeah. So they might get that second wave of popularity from the sequel.
It's not often that we see a non-comic book character get this much attention all at once. We're used to seeing all of the statue companies do Batman, Wolverine, Hulk, and so forth. But for all of them to do a sort of a movie character from a horror film, a new horror film that just came out, even though it's been remade before.
Well, I can think of somebody who gets a lot of attention that doesn't really have a popular movie or even a comic book, like Red Sonja. I mean, it seems every time we turn our heads, there's another Red Sonja coming out.
By how many companies?
Oh, well, you bring up a point there, but there are Red Sonjas being produced by other companies. But what I'm saying is that you're seeing a lot of her, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm a fan of hers, but to see all different companies in all these different scales on the same year just say, okay, guys, here's your pre-order for this statue. Normally, I'd be like, well, is it really justified? But in this case with Pennywise and the success of that film, and I thought it was pretty good. That film is here to stay. I think people loved it, and it's going to be a mainstay. I think it is justified. I really do. I think 5 years from now, people would still watch that movie. What one of my pet peeves is doing a statue of a movie that is so mediocre that it's going to be irrelevant in 3 months. That film and that thing, who wants a statue from a movie that just comes and goes, right? So,
that's a good point. I think, something like Prime One made a statue, let's say from the latest, not Armageddon, but or was it Armageddon?
You mean like Independence Day or
Independence Day, that's the one. And they made a bust of the alien from the sequel of Independence Day, and it's like
who's
why? Right? Like who's gonna buy that? But this one, I think you're right, Gina. I think this is a horror movie that's gonna stick around, and people are gonna be watching still. I really liked it. I'm not typically a horror guy, but I really like this movie. I read the book, and I enjoyed that too. The one that stands out to me again is this tweeter head. Probably mostly because it's different, but I do really like that one a lot.
So it's also a great shot. That's a great shot.
Yeah.
We need to take shots like that. That's a great shot.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see who's buying this stuff, because I'm not seeing the chatter. We're hearing people saying, "Hey, it's nice," or I could see it being popular. It's easy to say that. It doesn't cost money to say that. But it'll be interesting to see who's going to pony up 1,000. Did you say there was a half scale one?
The Prime One's half scale.
Okay,
the Elite Creature Collectibles is going to be at least a third, because all their stuff is a third or bigger.
So it'll be interesting to see the edition sizes and the cost for those things. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. Well, the Tweeterhead one, I'll be honest, I did buy the Tweeterhead one because I'm taking a shot on it. It's only $350, and I think it looks the best out of the four. So I'll give it a shot.
$350 is not cost prohibitive. $350 doesn't hurt. I think when we start going into the 800-900, I know I'm more selective.
Yep.
I have to really, really like it.
Yeah. Let's give a quick shout out to Divine, who's on our live chat here, watching the show. They're usually here for most of our shows. So thanks to
Hi Divine. Nice to see you.
Always joining in. So I don't know about you guys, but once Halloween passes, that's kind of my downslope to the end of the year. It's Christmas. In the mall here, Halloween ends, Christmas stuff is up November 1st, and that's I'm thinking end of the year. And also, always at the end of the year, the last few years is our Statue of the Year competition, our Statue Awards. So I think we're as I said, we're getting close to the end of the year. There may be a handful of bigger name pieces to trickle out from here till then, but as of now, I think we can start thinking about, okay, who are the front runners. So, Gina, do you want to start off? You have a couple pieces that have really kind of stood out to you so far in 2018.
I think right now, just from my perspective, the front runner is still this sideshow Thanos on throne. I think it's still, it had the greatest expectations, so it had that pressure on it, and then when they delivered, I think it came out amazing. And I think there are some people, collectors that may not have gotten a perfect Thanos on throne, and they should get it replaced, absolutely. But for the most part, I think most got a really good edition or a really good version of it, and I think it met the expectations. I think it had a huge amount of pressure on it to see people loved the prototype and loved what they saw, and that put a sort of a bullseye on that statue. It's like, okay, can Sideshow deliver? And I think they did. And that's coming from someone who's not a Thanos fan, who didn't get the statue. And, that's just not a character that appeals to me. And I can just sort of stand back from the outside and say, yeah, that statue is executed really well.
Yeah, I mean, that piece, I mean, Sideshow had a marketing plan for that one, and they just worked it perfectly. With all the teasers they had, the hype they built up for it, the way they revealed it, and then they come out and say, "Oh, we're going to limit the exclusive to whatever it was, 500." Just created a frenzy for it, right? And it's been talked about pretty much since it was first revealed. Like, Charles, it's up at near the top of the page at Statue Forum, like, for how many years now? Like 2 years straight?
They've been talking about it for a very long time. Just to add to something that Gina said, anything that's going to have that massive edition size is going to have some damaged pieces. So,
yeah,
hopefully everybody will get replaced. But Gina, did you want to talk about your other favorites before I chime in, or that's your favorite?
I don't know, Chris, did you want to go through our top and then we just cycle through, or I can just give mine?
Just give your list here. We'll just
sure.
I don't have a countdown or anything.
I think one of my other ones was Poison Ivy.
Right. I'll throw her up on screen here.
Yeah. That was another one. I thought this was I mean, even when they had shown the renders of this, and people were like, how is this going to be done? Like, how is it going to be painted? How is it going to be executed? And once again, like, I think it's all about having a great design and then the execution. It's sort of that two-tier situation, right? Do you have a good design, and then do you have a good execution? And I also thought that the concept was a perfect marriage. Like, Poison Ivy, a geisha who's trying to, and the geisha's sort of relationship with men, and Poison Ivy's relationship with men. I mean, that was a perfect concept. So, that's definitely up there for me as well. And then my next one, which possibly could be up there for the Statue of the Year, near there, would be the Moon Knight, XM Studios Moon Knight.
Right, we're kind of keeping our fingers crossed that now. He should be on the way. So hopefully he comes out this year. He should. But very, very cool. Oh, Martin Augusta's joining us here.
Martin, how are you?
That is perfect timing for Martin to chime in there. Let's just show up one of his creations again here. We got Poison Ivy, that's sculpted by Martin, one of our favorites. I think we all own it, and not to suck up right now, but we all love it, right? Great looking piece.
Yeah. Just say, I had no idea he was going to be on the show.
He's just
hopefully he'll be a guest in a future show.
Yeah, too. Martin, we're coming after you to be a guest here soon. But Okay, so that's 3 from Gina. We're hoping Moon Knight comes out. That one's by Caleb Nefson, and he did an excellent job.
Nice guy
Poison
too.
Ivy. Charles, I think we talked about her reveal at Singapore last year, and everybody just kind of stood back and said, "Wow!" Like that one came out of nowhere. And
You see, just on that point, right? You know, when you see a statue and you've got this, I gotta have this. That's what statues need to have today. You know, especially at the prices, the asking prices. If they got that, then they succeeded. You know, and Poison Ivy was one of those pieces that did it.
yeah. So Charles, anything you got to add that's maybe has either
Well,
your favorites or a chance to win?
I think Gina really nailed most of them. I think that it's going to come down to Thanos and Hulkbuster. That's what I think. It's going to come down to those two. And but if you're asking like what is my favorite and what I think is going to win, it's two different things.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah, of course.
I like the Thanos. It's a beautiful piece. I like the Hulkbuster too. Also a beautiful piece. But in terms of the one where I'm staring at it, it was Poison Ivy. Martin, you got me. You got me on the Poison Ivy. That is my statue of the year.
The fact that I bought a Poison Ivy statue should tell you how good I think it is. It's not a character that I have any real interest in, but that version of her and the Japanese elements that they infused with her just worked so perfectly, and it's an excellent piece. Yeah, I agree with you, Charles. What I like best and what is my favorite is not always the same as what wins, and that's kind of what makes it interesting and fun at times. Hulkbuster, Thanos, I think are two big ones. Another one that maybe you guys wouldn't think of is Vegeta from Sume.
That's right.
This is a big release for them. Dragon Ball is absolutely huge around the world.
Base, right? I think.
Well, it's got a light up bass and sound effects.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow!
You can plug it into speakers and it plays sound effects from the show. I had a chance to review that one, and it is legitimately very, very good, and it can compete, I think, with those other ones, just on its own artistic merits, but also with popularity wise, it can compete with those other two as well. For me, a couple of honorable mentions. We mentioned Poison Ivy. I really liked this Devilman statue from Figurama.
Caleb, another Caleb piece.
That's another Caleb sculpt. This is their first release as a company, and to be able to put something like that together right off the bat, I think says a lot about them and where they want to go.
Well, someone who's releasing something like that is not someone who's working for the first time. That's you see a lot of experience in a piece like that.
Yeah. Really, really cool. Turned out really, really good. And Morrigan from HMO. I really liked.
That's definitely a good choice. That one, that was off my radar. That is true. That one
we do have the gaming category as well now that debuted last year. And I think if not for the large scale category, the gaming category, that's definitely a contender there.
This is a hot looking piece.
It is. It's very, very nice. The eyes just really, really stand out. She's got they call it real eyes technology. Where they encase it in a gel and it looks like an eyeball, like a 3D effect. Very, very cool. I like her fingernails. Her fingernails are well painted. The colors really pop. Very, very cool statue all around. So those are my choices. I think.
But there's a variant of that one, right? Also,
there is, yeah. That one I showed. Yeah, the one I showed is the main one, the player one, with the blue hair and the purple outfit. The variant has pink hair and blue outfit, I believe.
Do you have a preference between the two?
I like the purple one, with the one that I showed. I'll show her up there again here. Yeah, I like this one here. Just, I don't know, the colors. I like the blue eyes. They really stand out to me.
I watched your review because I didn't know much about this character and the statue. You did a really good review, Chris.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, hopefully I got some of the, because the game that she's from, Darkstalkers, I don't know anything about that game. I'll be honest. I know her from Marvel vs. Capcom, some of the other games that she's appeared in down the line, and she's a popular cosplay character. So you see some of those pictures around.
We should post those.
Yeah, we should. I should have got some of those. Maybe we'll do a cosplay episode later.
We're not going to do a cosplay episode.
No?
No, we're not going to do a cosplay. Moving on.
Okay.
What's wrong with a cosplay episode?
I put my foot down. We're not doing cosplay.
So, yeah, I think, like we touched on, Thanos is a contender. Hulkbuster will be in there. Vegeta, I think, will be in there. And
Maybe
then some
Weapon
of those,
X?
yeah, maybe Weapon X. I mean, there's a handful of pretty good statues that have come out this year.
Absolutely.
And we're only really talking about the large scale part of it. We still got the extra large, all the Prime 1 stuff in there. Pop Culture Shock had a couple good ones in that category too.
What I liked about our list was how each of us touched upon sort of different statues that others may have forgotten about, because it's just such a litany of statues that you just really can't remember all of these pieces that got released. So, Charles, you mentioned the Hulkbuster, XM Hulkbuster, which looks amazing. And that was off my radar too. I kind of just forgot about it for a while. You know what I mean? And then Chris, you mentioned Morgan too. And it's just, there's these statues that, I'm glad that I got to hear your guys' list as well, that, we each got to share our list, because there's just statues that we sort of may have really liked, but you just kind of forget about. It's just, things are just being released often every week.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's really hard to predict what's going to win. There's so many things. It's just like movies, really. When you think about like the Oscars, timing when it's released is a big deal. Like, how long is it? Are people bored of Thanos by the time the voting comes around? Maybe. Whereas something that came out later. That particular one doesn't seem to be, but I just used that name for an example.
But the character
Statue X, right?
I mean, like, this character has a lot of steam. I mean, maybe not as much as Magneto or Venom, but I think companies could produce a few more Thanos pieces and they'll do well.
And I think there are a few more coming, right? We got the movie version coming from Iron Studios.
Right.
Got the pewter one from Royal Selangor. So there are more. But anyways, I think before we wrap up the show, we'll give a quick maybe teaser of what's coming next week.
Oh, yeah.
I believe. And we're going to throw up some renders of the Batman Shogun from XM Studios. And
special guest next week.
Do you want to introduce him, Charles?
Marco Plouffe, the sculptor of this piece, also the Sideshow Punisher piece. He's going to be coming by and he's going to be talking to us, and we're going to get into his head and see how these pieces came about, and how he became an artist, and his growing in the field that seems to be evolving daily. It'll be a lot of fun to have someone in the field who's producing some of the best stuff around now to come onto the show, and we'll get into their headspace. So, we want to know what it's like to work for XM, what it's like to work for Sideshow, what it's like to work for Prime 1, in terms of creative liberty, and there's a lot of questions that the three of us can speculate, right?
Yeah, and I should point out, if anybody, we'll put up a post on our Facebook page for people, if they have a specific question, we'll try to put a list together for him, try to get some fan input there as well. We'll each have our own questions, I'm sure. But Marco, I mean, we'll go through his portfolio on that show, but yeah, you mentioned Punisher, Batman Shogun, he's done a whole bunch for Prime 1, like some of the Guyver pieces.
Sure.
And he's worked in the gaming industry, it looks like the film industry as well, so he's done a lot as an artist, so I'm looking forward to that one.
We'll also ask for some dirt on Martin, so when he comes on the show, we could embarrass him.
That's right. Yeah, he would have worked closely with Martin, who is I believe the art director and one of the sculptors for XM. So
we're just kidding, Martin.
Maybe we should get them both on at the same time, and they can tell stories about each other there. So That'd be fun. So, anyways, I think fun show this week. Touched on a lot of stuff, some good TV stuff, and of course the statues and Halloween. So, thanks, guys. I had a lot of fun.
It was great seeing you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Have an amazing weekend. Enjoy your Halloween, and we'll see you in a week.
Yeah, and thanks to Divine and Martin Augusta for joining us on the show again. So we'll see you guys in a week with Marco Plouffe. Talk to you guys later.
Enjoy the season finale of Daredevil.
Yeah, Gina. Yeah.
All right.